lovely to be here and to be in the company of folks that really do want to give back. I have some things I thought if I'm going to go first. When you read TALTalks, right, social impact stories, I'm so glad you're here in San Diego because the stories here, and I'm looking at some of them, and I looked at all the list of speakers, I know most of their stories. And I think you're going to be so impressed for those of you that aren't from San Diego. Blue skies, we saw them today. Can't see them now, we're in a black box theater. Blue skies, palm trees, all the beauty that is San Diego. You get this postcard version, and it's beautiful. But it's a little like a promise sort of without a signature, if you will, right? A slogan waiting for someone to make it real. Because you flip the postcard over or remove it like I did, that's where you usually do the writing. And the writing on this postcard for me is more like the love letters from all of these communities, from Barrio Logan, from El Cajon, from Oceanside. They all have their own handwriting, their own dreams, their own stories, their own challenges. And that's the story I want to talk about this morning, the one that doesn't always make the postcard, but defines who we really are when the cameras and the tourists aren't really looking, okay? And that's what all of you do, and those of you that are engaged in social impact. And it's those of you that take this advertising slogan and really turn it into mission. In this time that we're living in right now, I've been constantly saying over and over and over again, we are not America's finest city without the finest nonprofit sector. And in that realm, this invitation to be here today at TALTalks invited me to sort of think about expanding that little sentence. So it's really not a mug, a t-shirt, and all of those things, right? It's this invitation to a vision of what we all want our larger community to look like. San Diego is really unique. If I'm the opening key speaker, I'm going to talk about to anybody what makes us a unique place, and it's undeniable, our natural beauty, our beaches, the light, the sea breeze air, all the things. Sometimes, I live in Coronado, I cross over the bridge, and it's just blue sky, day wide earth. But this beauty needs protection, and not everyone gets to access this beauty. So that's, the sort of the shadow side of our work. These are the things that make San Diego unique as a region. For those of you that don't know our region, we are home to the most indigenous tribes in the country. In that acknowledgement, we acknowledge we sit on the land, the unceded territory of the Kumeyaay Nation, right? And as we lift up their stories and as we lift up that acknowledgement, even the idea of a land acknowledgement, it's a constant reminder to us about how quickly stories can become erased. We are a military population. I myself am a military, what they would call a Navy brat. We're a proud military city defined by service and sacrifice, but the flip side of that, right, are these quiet burdens that military families carry during deployment, during war, during a government shutdown, all of those things. So I know this story of service and the sacrifice firsthand. Our beautiful multicultural neighborhoods where 30, 40 languages are spoken, I believe, in City Heights. They make our region vibrant and exciting. And they bring us great food, right? The food is incredible. And we could do a whole day of talks on the food and the cultural elements of all the food that exists in this region. But diversity alone doesn't equal connection, right? Add to that our world-class universities. We're sitting in one right now, and gorgeous arts and culture spaces that are lovely to have, but not always open to everybody. And they need that shadow side needs our attention and care. So it's that tension between what's beautiful and what's possible. It's where a city earns its right to call itself the finest. And that's what the nonprofit sector does here every day. It's the living reflection of what we value. So if a nonprofit's formed, it's because somebody thought it was important. Somebody thought it was morally just to start that project, to start that program, to bring 3 people together to solve a problem in India. It's not slogans, it's action, right? So when we say we care about children, nonprofits like Emilio Naras Foundation and Barrio Logan College Institute, they make that real. When we honor elders, serving seniors is there. Right? These are real things that people need help with. When we protect our environment, Tree San Diego reminds us that sustainability starts right here on our own streets. Outdoor outreach ensures belonging, includes the right to breathe and play, and Words Alive reminds us how important literacy is to build confidence and connection. So those are obviously very purposeful examples, right? Because you're going to hear from all of those folks today. And they show what happens when a city's ideals really meet its actions. Much of that work happens quietly, out of sight, behind the scenes. No headlines for rent assistance arriving just in time, or a mentor who changes a teen's life for the better. It's this invisible infrastructure that keeps the region steady. When government programs pause, nonprofits step in. When markets shift, they stabilize people's lives. They're not filling gaps. People say all the time, nonprofits are here to fill the gaps. They're not. They're building resistance. You're the connective tissue that holds the infrastructure of a city, the America's finest city, together, bringing folks from isolation into belonging. We can step back and look at their impact. It's undeniable. 13,000 nonprofits reside here. They have been growing for the last 20 years, the number of nonprofits. We have contributing billions in wages and services, so that's real money into our economy. I talk a lot about nonprofits as not just the social benefit, but the economic impact of the work here. So, we're at UCSD. How many grant dollars do you think flow here, right, into this space? Well, when a nonprofit receives a grant or a donation from outside of our area, the money gets spent here. That's economic activity, right? We're an important part of the economic security and safety factor of our city. Yet so many people, when they see that number 13,000, will tell you, oh, there's way too many nonprofits. They should merge, right? Or there's way too many. Like, what does that number mean? Nobody would ever tell you that there are too many Pete's Coffees, too many Starbucks, right? Because we think differently about the nonprofit sector for some reason. We don't acknowledge, we don't produce a latte, right, necessarily. But we do produce a social widget that is so critical to the health and well-being of the folks that live in our region. So we don't just create good, we create sustainability and opportunity. It's not just compassion, it's infrastructure. And the public sees it, right? They do. They see it regularly. In our state, we produce a regular report, the State of Nonprofits and Philanthropy. Residents tell us nonprofits are the institutions they trust the most to take on community challenges. That trust is earned by showing up regularly all of the time. It's shown when art is produced and when the water is clean. That belief, that sense of agency, that we can make a difference without having to wait for government or corporations, is the raw material, really, of civic life. There's so much conversation right now about civic life and the civic fabric of our country. And nonprofits, I would say, are the needle and the thread that are keeping that stitched together, honestly. It's what turns residents into participants and generosity into impact. So if you've ever been around the city of San Diego or ever gotten a letter from the city of San Diego, there's a seal, there's the city's official seal, and their motto is Semper Vigilans, which really means always vigilant. Right? I want us to think about that. We've mindlessly seen it more than we would ever know. But let's spend a bit of a minute thinking about the idea of vigilance. It's not about guarding power, right? It's about paying attention to people, staying alert to what's shifting in our neighborhoods, who's being left out, whose needs aren't being met, where hope might be wearing thin. That's the kind of vigilance that keeps a city truly fine. And it's the kind we see every day in all of the work that all of you do. On the front lines. I'm not on the front lines. Barry's not on the front lines. You are on the front lines. And we, dealing with some of humanity's most intractable challenges. So we honor you for that work and your vigilance. And that's what we do briefly, I'll tell you, at the Nonprofit Institute. We sustain that vigilance. We are vigilant ourselves. We work through a framework called Transform, Know, Advocate. We sit beside many of you in the transformation of your organizations and in the individual leaders. We create the knowledge that we hope everyone can share about the impact of the work that you do. And then we turn around and advocate on behalf of the sector whenever and wherever we can. Our research shows that this is a demanding and uncertain time for all of you. Yet it also shows really and truly, and I've seen it before in the Great Recession, in COVID, it's called the resilient sector for a reason. We're going to show up you're not going to stop us from showing up, right? So across the country, our research shows, our research shows that leaders are finding new ways to serve, new ways to collaborate, new ways to get really creative, right? In the midst of rollbacks on rights for LGBTQ plus folks, for and other human rights, and for immigrants, advocates are doubling down. They're not sinking into their shell, right? They're doubling down. As federal workers, and my son is one of them, missed their first paycheck last week. Volunteers are flocking to food banks, right? They're flocking to food banks to fill the shelves. The public good may feel fragile, but it's also very much alive, visible in partnership in every act of care that you guys are taking up. So speaking of the public good, let's talk about the county for a minute. Here's the county's motto, right? The county's motto is, the noblest motive is the public good. I don't think the city of San Diego and the county of San Diego and even the America's Finest City idea can be carried out without your work, right? It's about what we do and what we notice when you're talking about the public good. Our nonprofit carry that motive forward every day, serving as viral. We do more county services than any other on behalf of the county in San Diego than any other county in the state of California. We are an important partner in behavioral health, youth development, all of those things, and our government trusts us to do those services in the neighborhoods that trust us equally as much. Speaking of trust, here's the data on that. We've been surveying nonprofits public opinion surveying for a long time in San Diego, over 10 years. And regularly, nonprofits are seen as the most trusted by our citizens and survey takers to do a whole host of things, but to provide quality services, more so than government for-profit agencies. So in a time when confidence is waning in institutions, nonprofits remain the sector that people believe in, and I want you to know that people do think that. We're also a growing philanthropic sector. We have a lot of foundations, and they've been growing, and they're really encouraging giving that's more evolving and more equitable. And the thing that really excites me about all of this is that 2/3 of San Diegans believe that they can make a difference in the lives of their neighbors and communities by working with or donating to nonprofits. The belief that confidence is in our own capacity to care, which is what transforms mottos into missions. And when I opened, we looked at that beautiful postcard, the one that shows San Diego at its most beautiful, but what makes the city truly fine isn't what's printed on that postcard, it's what happens here every day with all of your conviction, all of your expertise, all of your care. San Diego is America's finest city because of you, because of nonprofits, the people who turn ideals into impact, who stay vigilant, and who make the public good something we can see and feel. So thank you, thank you, thank you for that work. And however we can be supportive of that at the Nonprofit Institute, please reach out and let us know. And I hope you have a wonderful day together today.